The stars have not spoken your name in millennia, and yet tonight they stir. You lie beneath the canopy of a galaxy stretching endlessly, lights pulsing like slow heartbeats. You are not dreaming, but you are not awake either. Something calls. From far beyond the rim of what is known, an echo of a voice long buried in time. The force hums, not as a command, but as a song. Ancient, expectant, you rise without motion, floating between lifetimes. There is no time here, only memory made real. The air is thick with stardust and sacred knowing. You pass nebulae like cathedrals, each whispering hymns of ages not yet come. The force surrounds you. It guides you through the spiral arm of destiny, until you reach it, the place where all things begin again. The core glows. Coruscant. It is not the world you remember. It is younger, before the rot, before the ambition. The city planet is a crown of light set on the brow of civilization. You descend into the heartbeat of the galaxy. The Senate spires pierce the clouds. The Jedi Temple rises like a monument to purpose, not yet tainted by pride. They do not see you. You are wind brushing through banners. You are the silence in the archives. You walk through the hall of knowledge, where younglings recite codes they barely understand. You feel the threads of the Force, too many pulled tight, too few left free. The council sits in stillness, their vision narrowing while the future looms like a storm. Yet somewhere, beyond their vision, the Force begins to whisper of one to come. He is not born yet, not here, not now, but the prophecy pulses in the marrow of the galaxy. A chosen one, the Force murmurs, one who will bring balance. You feel the shiver pass through 1,000 timelines. No one knows what balance means, not really. The Jedi think it is peace. The Sith think it is power. But the Force does not speak in absolutes. It breathes in paradox. You are made to remember that dot, and so you shift dot to a darker place, the outer rim, beyond law, beyond light. Naboo. You land softly on the dew-slicked grasslands, where Gungan cities glow beneath the lakes and human royalty cloaks itself in tradition. Queen Amidala is not yet queen. She is only Pab, a child of purpose, not yet chosen. But already the Force circles her gently, a leaf in a river current, not yet aware of the waterfall ahead. A vision begins to form. You see the trade, Federation metal, and malice masquerading as diplomacy. You see the silent engines of greed beginning to hiss. The invasion is coming. It will be her trial, her awakening. The galaxy's first crack will echo through her voice, firm despite youth, defiant despite fear. You look beyond her dot to the shadows, beneath the throne, and there you feel him, Darth Sidious. He moves like oil across clean water, unseen and patient. His breath fogs the future. His hands are already in every chamber, every transaction, every doubt. He will orchestrate the fall with the grace of a symphony conductor. His notes are deception. His silence is slaughter. His vision stretches farther than even the Jedi can feel. And he, too, knows of the prophecy. He does not fear it. He plans to bend it. He whispers of apprentices, of puppets, of planets sacrificed for the illusion of order. He watches Naboo because Naboo is the bait. Peace will shatter here. The Jedi will come. And through this crack, destiny will seep in. You drift again to the hangar, to Jedi step into view. Their robes heavy with mission. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Qui-Gon is the anomaly, the one who listens not just to the code, but to the current beneath it. He does not walk with certainty, he walks with trust. The Force speaks to him in dreams, and he believes. Even when others mock, even when the Council turns its back, he does not know it yet, but he is the first thread pulled. And Obi-Wan, sharp, cautious, bound to duty, yet loyal to his master, above law, he will bear witness, he will carry the wound forward. You feel the engines rumble. The Queen escapes Naboo, the Jedi join her, and the path so long hidden begins to open. But still, the Chosen One is not here, not yet. You follow them to Tatooine, a world of twin suns and broken chains. Here, among the sandstorms and junkyards, you feel it, a presence raw and bright buried beneath sweat and servitude. Anakin, a child, no more than 9 eyes, alight with questions no one has dared ask. He builds things to understand them. He moves through life not as one who belongs, but as one who waits for something greater to arrive. The Force around him does not flow, it swirls, tempestuous and untrained. The currents buckle. This boy is not merely gifted, he is created, born without father, born through will or design, a virgins. Qui-Gon will call him a pivot point. You see the Jedi Master kneel before the boy. You hear the question, who was his father? And the answer, there was none. A silence follows. The Force holds its breath. You linger near Anakin as he races through the canyons. His pod racer, an extension of his heartbeat. He moves not like a boy, but like a being shaped for something far greater. The winds part for him. The moment bends to him. Qui-Gon watches. He knows, not with facts. With faith, he gambles everything and wins the boy, but not the mother, Shmi. Skywalker stands in the shadow of the slave quarters, and you feel her soul fracture gently as she lets go. Her sacrifice is quiet, profound. She does not know where he is going, only that he must. Her eyes lock with Qui-Gon's, and in that unspoken moment, something eternal passes between them. You rise with the boy as the ship takes off. He does not look back. He asks about stars, about Jedi, about dreams. And in the silence between answers, you feel the sorrow already beginning to plant its seeds. He is not ready. No child ever is. But the galaxy has already chosen him. You follow the ship to Coruscant. The temple looms again, but now you see it differently. The walls are less sacred, the council less wise. They test the boy, they fear the boy. Yoda's ears twitch. Mace Windu narrows his gaze. They speak of age, of danger, of the darkness inside. They are right and they are wrong. You watch as Qui-Gon stands against them. He claims the boy. He claims belief, and they deny him. But permission is irrelevant. The Force has already spoken. Qui-Gon trains him anyway, for he knows the Chosen One has arrived. But destiny is not a prophecy fulfilled. It is a question asked again and again by a galaxy too blind to listen. You drift now into stillness. The echoes fade. The stars return. But you feel it, don't you? Something ancient has been awakened. The Force is moving again, and you are caught in its tide. You walk now beneath chambers where destinies are debated like currency, where prophecy is weighed against comfort, and where truth is trimmed to fit robes of tradition. The Jedi Temple hums with quiet contradiction. its silence thick with fear wrapped in wisdom's disguise. You feel it in the way Yoda's gaze lingers on the boy, in the way Mace Windu's voice carries hesitation cloaked in logic. Anakin Skywalker stands in the soft shadow of their judgment, not yet a warrior, not yet a storm, but already the current around him bends like reeds to wind. He is not like the others. The Force does not merely live in him, it waits, curled like lightning in a bottle, searching for the first crack. He does not know the way of things, but he knows that something inside him pulls toward something vast, as if he were born staring at a door only he can open. You drift beside him as he walks the temple halls, a child among giants, learning words ancient and precise, yet never meant for someone like him. He studies, he trains, he obeys, but inside, the spark grows restless. Obi-Wan watches him from the distance of duty, unsure where mentorship ends and burden begins. He honors the last wish of his master, Qui-Gon, but the weight of the promise tastes of dust and uncertainty. Still, he teaches, and Anakin listens, though his eyes often drift to the skies beyond the temple's windows, to the wars he dreams of fighting, to the freedom he never truly had. You feel the Force tremble again, not because of what is happening, but because of what must. The galaxy shifts, quietly, as if holding its breath. You see the Chancellor Palpatine, smiling, speaking softly, always near, always listening. His hand is light, his words lighter, but they settle on Anakin's shoulders like chains made of velvet. You follow them both into the chambers of politics, where words weigh more than weapons, and where every speech is a blade, every vote a battle. Padma Amidala stands again at the Senate floor, no longer a girl queen, but a voice honed by fire. She speaks with clarity that slices through corruption, yet she stands alone, watched and measured by men who see idealism as weakness. You see, Anakin, watch her. You see how the boy becomes a shadow of the man to come, longing, not just for her, but for a sense of belonging he cannot name. He guards her because he is told to. He stays because he chooses to. You remember Tatooine and the bond of mother and son, now stretched across star systems like a tether of unhealed ache. The dreams begin soon after. Nightmares of pain, of chains, of screams in the sand. You feel his fear. It grows not as a thunderclap, but as a slow, steady dripping, echoing louder in the silence. And so he returns. You walk with him across the scorched sand of home. Tatooine has not changed. The suns still burn. The slavers still profit. But his mother is gone, hidden beyond the veil of time until he finds her, broken, bruised, fading. You hear her whisper his name. You feel the last threads of her breath coil around his soul, and then you feel them snap. Something inside him fractures. The scream he releases is not heard by the ears. It is heard by the Force. You follow him into the darkness of the Tusken camp. You do not look away. You feel each breath, each blow, each flash of blue turned red in his mind. He does not stop. He does not see. He only feels the rage, the loss, the injustice. When he returns, the boy is gone. In his place walks someone who has tasted power without mercy and found it not repulsive, but right. He tells Padme what he has done, and still she stays, not because she approves. The Clone Wars begin like a storm you sensed long before the first drops. You stand with the Jedi on Geonosis, lightsabers drawn beneath red skies, surrounded by droids and confusion and betrayal. His words laced with cold clarity. The Republic is falling from within, and he is not wrong. You watch Anakin charge, reckless, fueled by more than justice. His arm is severed, his pride wounded, enough to stop loss. In the dark corridors of Camino, you drift through the birthing vats where the clone army stirs. The war is no accident. It is a design, precise and invisible, conceived in shadows. But with necessity, they become generals, not guardians, peacekeepers with battalions. Their code stretches thin, their minds thinner. Anakin grows stronger. The war shapes him, sharpens him, splits him. Every victory feeds his legend. Every loss deepens his need to control what the Force will not. You see him lead with fire. You see how the soldiers follow without question. You see how the Council watches with rising unease. And you see how Palpatine smiles, always smiling, always near. His words are never commands. They are suggestions, shaped like gifts. You are powerful. They fear you. You could save her. You walk with Anakin into the darkened halls of the Jedi archives, where knowledge has limits and truth is edited. He begins to ask the forbidden questions, not because he rebels, but because he desires certainty. Certainty that the Order will not give. Certainty that Padma will live. Certainty that death can be undone, and the dreams come again. Of her, Padma, dying in childbirth, crying out his name. He cannot lose her. He will not. He saw his mother die. He will not watch helplessly again. But the Jedi offer silence, meditation, detachment, and so he turns to the only voice that offers a path, however twisted. Steam between him and Obi-Wan. They speak like brothers, but they listen like strangers. The bond stretches, thins, frays. You feel the current beneath everything, how the Force does not scream, but murmurs, like a tide pulling all things toward a shore unseen. You remember now what balance means, not silence, just for a breath. Just before it all breaks word count, 2246, awaiting continue, right, next section, with, you stand in the stillness before the end, where silence carries more weight than thunder, and the shadows are no longer hiding, but waiting. Coruscant glows beneath the dusk of deception, and you drift through its heart like a wind that remembers what has been forgotten. In the Chancellor's office, the curtains are drawn against truth, and Anakin Skywalker kneels not in defiance, but in despair. His voice trembles, his soul buckles, and his oath spoken, not to the Order, but to fear, falls from his lips like ash. I will do whatever you ask. Just help me save her. And so it begins, is now bound by it. You feel the darkness wrap around him like smoke, not suffocating, but embracing. Palpatine, no longer masked, but revealed, names him not with love, but with purpose. Darth Vader. It is not a name, it is a silence. You follow him through the corridors of the temple, where lights flicker uncertainly, and the children sense something wrong before they see the saber. You want to look away, but you cannot. You are the Force now, and the Force does not judge it, only remembers. He walks among the younglings like a god exiled from mercy, his blade humming with the weight of betrayal. Fire, but from the breaking of a covenant older than words. Across the galaxy, Order 66 whispers from clone to clone like a sacred lie. The Jedi fall, not in war, but in ambush, on dusty worlds, in forests, in towers. They are struck down by those they once led. You drift among them as they fall, Layla in the trees, Plo Koon in the skies, Kiadi on the snow-covered bridge. Farewell, no honor, only the sound of betrayal echoing through the Force like thunder underwater. Yoda, in exile, feels the scream. Obi-Wan, broken and bleeding, survives by accident and agony and Pod, as if it were a symphony. She sees democracy crumble in real time. Her heart does not break, it shatters. You walk with her one last time into the belly of Mustafar, a planet shaped by fury and fire. She pleads with Anakin, voice quivering, hands shaking, her love still aflame against the storm. But he is already gone, not dead, no, but hollowed. The boy who dreamed of stars now wears armor made of fear. He speaks of power, of control, of safety, but he does not speak of hope. Obi-Wan steps from the shadows. The duel begins not with violence, but with sorrow. You stand between them, two brothers, two mirrors, locked in orbit. The lava does not roar louder than their words. You were the chosen one, shouts Obi-Wan, but the wind does not carry the accusation, it carries the grief. And Anakin, burning now not from flame, but from fate, screams in hatred, in pain, in abandonment, limbs severed, body broken, soul undone. Obi-Wan turns away. He cannot finish what destiny has already sealed. You follow Pob as she gives birth in agony, whispering a name split in two, Luke, Leia, and then you cannot. The Force does not mourn. It shifts, it waits, it weaves. The children are hidden, one in royalty, the other in dust. Somewhere beneath the mask, beneath the scar, beneath the ruin, a breath remains, a flicker, a question unasked. You remember balance. It did not promise joy. It did not promise peace. It promised restoration, and restoration often begins in ruin. The chosen one did come. He was not perfect. He was not pure, but he was true. True in fear, true in love, true in failure. And one day, when the sky breaks again and the dark meets the light, not in war, you are the witness now, the listener, the bearer of what once was and what still may be. You have walked with the prophecy, not through triumph, but through transformation, a part of the great unfolding. The galaxy breathes once more, and you are ready to remember the next truth. You arrive beneath the cascading skies of Naboo, where clouds drift like silk over emerald lakes, and every breeze carries the scent of something older than time. Yet, even here, in the garden of the galaxy, the Force trembles. That does not sing. The world is beautiful, yes, but it is a beauty on the verge of fracture. The meadows hum with hidden sorrow. The palace walls gleam not with glory, but with burden. Cities flicker like lanterns in the deep forgotten allies in a world ruled by ceremony. You drift into the heart of Theed, the capital city, where the people move as if nothing could ever go wrong, as if the galaxy's tides do not reach them here. But something is wrong. The Force thickens, heavy with approaching consequence. You follow the footsteps of a girl no older than a whisper in the cosmos, cloaked in velvet and crowned with duty. She is not Queen Amidala, yet not truly. She is Padme Berry, the echo of a storm not yet heard, who speak in half-truths and sidelong glances. You can feel her doubt growing not in herself, but in the pageantry. She is not meant to be decoration. She is meant to be defiance. And across the stars, the shadows begin to move. On distant screens and encrypted channels, the Trade Federation plots under the watchful eyes of their unseen puppet master. They speak of taxation, of profit, of blockades. But what you feel is something colder machinery winding toward war, indifference parading as politics, voice he has never seen, and in that voice you feel the ice of the Sith. Darth Sidious speaks not with fury, but with precision, every word a thread in the unraveling. Naboo is not just a planet, it is a test, a lever, a wound to be opened so that the infection may spread. You drift through the blockade as it forms, silent ships locking the world in place. The Naboo try diplomacy, they try pleading, but no one listens. The Republic responds with silence, measured in committee votes. The Senate debates while people begin to starve. You see Podnam watch the skies from her window, fists clenched at her side. She understands now. The words of the powerful mean nothing if they do not act. She will not beg, she will not break, she will act. And the Force begins to hum with alignment. The Jedi arrive not as warriors, but as watchers. Qui-Gon, Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, blades of peace unsheathed by necessity. You follow them through the corridors of a besieged world, their steps purposeful, their presence a ripple across what was meant to be still. Qui-Gon feels it instantly, not just the invasion, but the orchestration behind it. He senses the hand behind the veil, the hunger beneath the gold. He does not speak it, not yet, but the Force whispers to him in ways others no longer hear. Obi-Wan is younger, sharper, more tethered to structure, but even he sees the truth as it unfolds in steel and smoke. The Jedi escort the Queen through peril, not to safety, but to purpose. Padme hides her true identity beneath decoy masks and walks among her people, listening, learning, becoming. You follow her onto the refugee ship that breaks through the blockade. It is there, in the hum of damaged engines, that fate shifts again. A fault forces them to land on a desert world, a place the galaxy has chosen to forget Tatooine. But the Force has not forgotten. The Force has been waiting. The child waits there, Anakin. And though this is not his story, not yet, you feel the gravity he exerts, even before he is seen. Pod walks into the shop, where he works as a slave, and something unspoken stirs between them. Not romance, not fate, recognition. They are both imprisoned by the shapes the galaxy has assigned them. She by duty, he by chains. And they both will break free, though the cost will echo for decades. Qui-Gon senses the vortex surrounding the boy. He gambles, he wins, he loses the mother, the comfort, the anchor. And as the ship lifts from sand back to stars, something ancient begins to awaken. They return to Coruscant. The Queen demands justice. The Jedi report, the Sith and the Senate. Bloated, you drift beside Padma as she walks through columns of power, her steps slower now, but heavier with resolve. She does not believe in titles. She believes in action, and so she returns to Naboo, to the place of her becoming. The invasion has escalated. The palace is seized. The people are dying. The Trade Federation has overstepped its leash, not realizing that they were never in command. Padma unites with the Gungans, with Boss Nass, whose pride was once a wall, but now becomes A bridge. You watch the ceremony of unity, water and land, human and other melded not by law, but by need. The battle begins not with war cries, but with purpose. Gungan shields shimmer in the grass. Blaster bolts paint the air. The queen and her guards storm the palace. And in the hangar, Darth Maul waits. You feel it before you see him, the coiled presence, the hunger for legacy. He ignites his blade, one side, then another, double-edged, like truth, like prophecy. You follow the duel. The music rises not from instruments, but from destiny itself. Qui-Gon moves with the rhythm of trust, Obi-Wan with the speed of duty, Maul with the fury of purpose denied. Blow after blow, they collide like thoughts in the mind of the galaxy. The energy gates flicker. Time splits. You see Qui-Gon fall. The blade strikes not just his body, but the balance. Obi-Wan screams, and then silence, then resolve. He rises, leaps, strikes, and Maul falls, cleaved and screaming into the pit of a future that will not forget him. The battle ends. Naboo is free. The Queen restores sovereignty. The Senate applauds. But the cost is not counted. Not yet. Qui-Gon is gone. Obi-Wan is changed. Anakin is chosen. And Padma smiles for her people, but her eyes carry shadows that will never leave. You float above the coronation. Music plays. Flowers fall. Peace is declared. But peace is a mask. You feel the Sith still breathing in the corners of power. You feel a war that has not yet begun, but already feeds on victory. And you feel her Padma standing at the edge of her own myth, not knowing that love will one day kill her, that trust will one day betray her, and that from this day forward, the galaxy will never again be what it was. Naboo does not sing tonight, it weeps, silently, beneath the surface, beneath the masks, beneath the silence, something darker grows. You drift above the celebrations like a ghost that sees what joy refuses. Naboo glistens in the aftermath of liberation, but you feel it in the wind, in the water, in the waning sunlight that bends. Behind the palace dome, this victory was never whole. It was permission, a beginning disguised as an end. The parade winds through Theed, trumpets wailing, declarations of unity, children tossing flowers, soldiers smiling because their wounds are not yet visible. Queen Amidala, cloaked once more in ceremony, walks the polished stone in triumph. Her smile practiced, her poise effortless, yet deep within her, the silence rings louder than the music. She has won a battle, but the Warren scene, unnamed, has already seated itself far beyond her reach. Chancellor Palpatine stands beside her now, modest, grateful, eyes kind, words gentle. But you feel the way the Force recoils around him, not violently, but with dread that moves like ink through clear water. He was elected not because of charisma, not because of vision, but because fear had been carefully nurtured, and he was its harvest. You watch the Republic sigh in relief, not knowing that its breath is already being stolen. In the shadows of the Senate, deals are struck with invisible ink. Committees swell, laws twist, and soon war will be not a possibility, but a necessity. But here, on Naboo, the surface still reflects light. You move with Padma as she returns to her chambers, robes heavy with peace, heart heavy with questions. She sits, alone, unadorned, stripped of royalty, a young woman who saw the edge of power and did not flinch, but who now wonders if the edge was ever meant to be seen at all. She thinks of the Jedi, of Qui-Gon's eyes when he spoke of the boy, of Obi-Wan's silence, of Anakin's innocence wrapped in a storm. She remembers the way he looked at her, not with desire, not yet, but with belief, unfiltered and absolute. It was not a look she had ever received before. It frightened her, not because it was wrong, but because it was honest. Somewhere in the galaxy, he trains now. The child who once raced through sandstorms for freedom now spars in halls of marble. Under the weight of tradition, Anakin does not forget her. His thoughts find her in meditation, in the hum of his lightsaber, in the silence between Obi-Wan's lessons. He is growing stronger, but not quieter. The Force in him does not flow. It swells like a tide against a dam too small to hold it. You feel the Council watch him with unease masked as interest. He is a prophecy made flesh, and no one agrees on what that means. To some, he is hope, to others, threat, and to the galaxy, he is still invisible. Padma resumes her senatorial duties. The velvet throne, replaced by a seat in the crowded amphitheater of Coruscant's Senate. She speaks, she pleads, she debates. She watches the ideals of democracy stretch like glass under heat. What was once clear is now distorted. She sees corruption dressed in etiquette, injustice passed by majority vote, and always, always Chancellor Palpatine nearby. Gracious, listening. He does not oppose her. He never needs to. Others do that for him. You see how Padme learns to navigate power, not as a queen, but as a woman, one who must smile even when unheard, who must speak twice to be remembered once. Her speeches become sharper, her alliances stronger, but the galaxy grows more chaotic by the day. You drift across star systems, now boiling with tension. Separatist murmurs rise. Count Dooku, once Jedi, now rogue, gathers support, not with tyranny, but with truth wrapped in fear. He speaks of the Republic's failures, and he is not wrong. He speaks of manipulation, and though he lies, the shape of his lie holds truth at its center. The Clone Wars loom, not like a storm, but like a hunger that has learned to walk. And in this swell of uncertainty, Anakin and Pab meet again. You stand beside them in the gardens of Naboo, where the grass has regrown and the lakes remain. Still, he is taller now, stronger, wiser in form, but not in fear. She greets him with the warmth of someone who has carried his memory like a stone in her pocket, never looked at, but never dropped. Their conversations are awkward, honest, soft at the edges and sharp at the center. He speaks of duty. She speaks of obligation. But between the words floats something unspeakable, a gravity neither was taught to resist. You feel the Force hold its breath. They are drawn together, not by lust, but by loneliness, not by possession, but by understanding. Two souls forged in service to ideals that see them as tools, not people. They fall, not like lightning, but like stars moving toward each other across centuries and the galaxy. Watches silently. You feel Obi-Wan sense the shift, but say nothing. He is too focused now on the changing tides. The Jedi are pulled deeper into politics, forced into war rooms and battlefield roles. Their sabers, once symbols of peace, now gleam beneath banners of conquest. And Anakin, caught between love and code, begins to fracture in ways too quiet to name. Padme becomes his anchor, his secret, his salvation, but also his undoing. Their bond is not a weakness to treat, and through this, Palpatine watches, always watching, always there with a word of comfort, a gesture of trust, a promise spoken just outside the range of suspicion. He feeds Anakin's doubts with small truths and shapes his dreams with big lies. He paints the Jedi as rigid, fearful, blind to potential. And in the silence between battles, in the echo after every mission, Anakin begins to listen. It happening slow, methodical, almost gentle. The boy who was once a slave now sees freedom, not in detachment, but in control. Not in trust, but in power. The galaxy becomes louder. Jedi die. Worlds fall into shadow. And Pod Man, pregnant now, feels both life and death forming inside her. She does not yet speak of the child, not to the Senate, not even to Anakin. And the Force stirs, sensing something new, a future unpredicted, a balance not yet broken. You drift once more to the temple, where Anakin walks among statues of heroes who knew less than he does now. He sees their robes, but he feels their distance. He does not belong here. He never did. And the voice of the Chancellor, patient and poised. The war escalates. Dooku falls. General Grievous flees. Hope swells. And in that hope, the final blade is sharpened. The Republic believes it is winning, is coming. But you know better. You have seen what they have not. You have walked through Naboo's silence. You have touched the edge of Sidious design. Naboo still sings in dreams, but its song is fading. The shadows have moved, and soon they will strike. You return to Naboo, not in triumph, but in memory, gliding above the fields that once bore laughter, now heavy with silence, too vast to speak. As if the stars themselves have begun to grieve. The world does not know it yet, but something sacred has died. You float into the heart of Theed, its fountains running as they always have. But the air carries weight, as though the planet senses the breath before a scream. Padma Amidala walks the marbled halls of her childhood with a hand pressed against the swell of her unborn children, her steps slow, her thoughts louder than the music that once played at her coronation. She speaks with senators who offer sympathies wrapped in cowardice, who discuss the state of war as though it were a chessboard and not a graveyard. She listens, but no longer believes. The Senate now echoes with the voice of Palpatine strong. Clear, dangerous, he stands like a savior, promises security, sways with certainty, and no one sees the venom in his calm. When he speaks of reorganizing the Republic into the first galactic empire, there is applause, thunderous, deafening applause. And Pob, eyes wide with a sorrow too old for her years, whispers into the shadows. So this is how liberty dies. And you feel the Force shudder. You move with her through dim corridors where truths are hidden, where Anakin, now a man and a mask, returns with his gaze heavy and his touch distant. He has changed. Riddles, questions her loyalty, dreams of loss and the power to prevent it. He tells her he can protect her, rule beside her, end the chaos. But she hears the hunger in his voice, not for peace, but for control. She backs away. He steps forward. She pleads. He accuses. He leaves her standing in the echo of words neither of them meant to say, and she begins to understand that the boy she once knew, the boy who looked at her with wonder, who held hope like a flame, has vanished into smoke. You drift across Mustafar now, where the sky bleeds and the ground weeps fire. Pob follows, desperate to reach the last ember of the man she loved. Like a storm, she calls his name. She speaks of love. She begs him to stop, to see, to remember. But he does not hear her. He only hears betrayal. He sees Obi-Wan in the distance, and rage becomes his language. He chokes the life from her with hands once used to build, and as she collapses, the last bond to his former self collapses too. The duel begins not with vengeance, but with sorrow. Parry is memory. They fight across rivers of molten fire, across catwalks and ruins, across every word left unsaid. Obi-Wan pleads with Anakin to see, to stop, but the dark has already swallowed the light. And when the final blow lands, when limbs fall and the flames lick bone, Obi-Wan does not cheer, he weeps. "You were the chosen one," he cries, voice cracking like the surface of Mustafar itself. And Anakin, broken, burning, answers with hatred that only masks heartbreak. Obi-Wan leaves. Padma, still breathing, is taken away, and Naboo awaits. You follow her to Palis Massa, where droids cannot fix what is not broken. Long enough to hold her children, long enough to whisper their names, long enough to say there is still good in him. And then she slips away, as soft as starlight. You drift now through the funeral procession, where her body lies in state, her hands wrapped around a pendant that once hung in innocence. Theed stands still, the people mourn, and perhaps they are not wrong. You watch as her casket is lowered into the royal tomb, as the flowers of Naboo bend toward her in sorrow, and you feel the Force gather. To sand and silence, the twins will grow apart, yet bound, hidden, yet known by the Force and Naboo. Naboo falls into quiet. The planet once drenched in music now hums with melancholy. Palpatine tightens his grip. The Jedi are gone. The Empire rises. But beneath it all, beneath the ash and steel and doctrine, the memory of Padme Mary lingers like the scent of rain on stone. She was the first voice to say no, the first to see what others would not. And though she did not live to see the dawn, she planted the seed of rebellion with her last breath. You return once more to the lakes of Naboo, where water meets sky and silence meets song. You sit where she once sat. You close your eyes where she once dreamed, and you feel it. Not pain, not loss, but something softer. The Force, quiet now, waiting again, because one day the children will rise, the galaxy will turn, and Naboo will sing once more. You wake beneath twin suns that burn not with warmth, but with the weight of survival. And the sand clings to your skin like memory, endless, shifting, and merciless. Of silence interrupted only by the rusted bones of wreckage and the groan of distant engines. The wind does not whisper here, it scours. And yet, in this desolation, the Force breathes, faint, fractured, but present. You walk through Mos Espa, a city not built but scraped from the dust by hands desperate to matter. Traders shout beneath cracked awnings. Droids stumble through alleys lined with broken dreams. Games with hunger in their eyes. And among them there is one, a boy. He moves differently, not with pride, not with fear, but with the quiet certainty of someone waiting for something no one else can see. Anakin, the Force coils around him, like a thread pulled from beyond time, humming against the grime on his skin, the grease on his hands, the scars too old for his age. He is a slave, owned like a tool, treated like a nuisance. But even chains cannot silence the light that flickers inside him. You watch as he rebuilds a protocol droid, crafts a pad racer from scraps, speaks with creatures who tower over him as if he were their equal. He knows engines, machines, currents, things he's never been taught. He doesn't understand why. He just feels it, the way others feel the sun. And somewhere inside him is a hunger not for freedom, but for belonging. Shmi, his mother, watches him with the weary grace of someone who gave everything and still holds more. She speaks only of today. She teaches him kindness, not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. And Anakin, even when frustrated, even when beaten down by the weight of what he cannot have, remains gentle. But something stirs now. You feel it, like a cold wind. In heat, a ship descends from the Starza Jedi transport, weathered, burdened, guided not by politics, but by the will of the Force. Qui-Gon Jinn steps onto the sand with the gaze of someone who has walked too long between truth and doctrine. And when he meets Anakin, he feels it, not with reason, but with resonance. Like a song half remembered, the Force does not whisper, it sings, and Qui-Gon listens. The boy races in Boonta Eve, engines screaming like war, dust curling around his vision. He is too young, too untrained, too human, and yet he flies, not to win, not to prove, but because he can, because the wind listens, the engines obey. The track bends to him. When he crosses the finish line, the crowd erupts, but the victory does not free him, not really. He is still owned, still caught, until Qui-Gon makes the gamble. Wagers not just for the parts, but for the child. The dice are rolled, the Force nudges, and Anakin is released not to safety, but to destiny. You walk with him to his mother, and you feel the weight in the silence between them. She smiles, he cries. She kneels, her hands on his face, and tells him not to look back. He hugs her as if trying to remember everything at once, her voice, her warmth, her smell, her breath, and then he lets go. The ship rises into the sky. Tatooine shrinks, and the boy stares out the window, not in awe, but in silence. He has left behind his home, his past, and a piece of his heart he will never reclaim. The Jedi Temple looms in the distance of space. Coruscant awaits, with its towers of light and judgments cloaked in reason. They will not see him, not fully, not truly. They will test him, measure him, debate his danger, but the Force has already chosen. And Anakin, still just a boy, begins to carry the prophecy like a wound that never bleeds. He does not know what he is, but the galaxy will never be the same. You watch him walk the marble halls of the Jedi Temple, his footsteps too light for the burdens he carries, his eyes scanning every sculpture and corridor, not with reverence, but with a need to belong, to be seen, to be chosen again, just by fate, but by those who claim to serve it. Anakin trains with others who speak in mantras, who meditate in silence, who are taught to release attachment before they've ever truly loved, but he does not feel the stillness they speak of. The Force in him does not flow gently like a stream, crashes like a wave against the rocks of tradition, refusing to be calmed. He learns quickly, moves faster, sees more, but it is not enough. The Council watches him with quiet disapproval, dressed in measured wisdom. Yoda sees fear. Mace Windu sees danger. Obi-Wan sees potential. But behind his loyalty lies uncertainty, and the boy feels it. He feels everything. His mind does not rest. His heart does not forget. Tatooine haunts him not as a place, but as a truth denied. He left his mother behind, not by choice, not by cruelty, but by design. And the dreams begin. First, as echoes dust on the wind, a scream just beyond reach, then sharper. He sees her, in pain, shackled, calling his name with a voice too tired to last. He wakes with fists clenched, drenched in a sweat the temple cannot cool. He tells no one, not Obi-Wan, not the Council, only the Force, and the Force offers no comfort. Years pass. He grows in strength, in skill, in reputation. He becomes a hero before he becomes a man. And with each victory the Jedi assign him, with each war he wins for a republic losing its soul. The line between guardian and weapon begins to vanish. They call him the Chosen One, yet they bind him. In silence, fear his emotions, warn him against the very love that saved him from becoming nothing at all. And yet, amid all this, there is one voice that never judges, one presence that brings peace, Padma. You feel how his thoughts bend toward her, even as the galaxy pulls him in every other direction. Their connection, once gentle, becomes an anchor, secret, sacred. She listens not with doctrine, but with empathy. And Anakin, who has spent his life being watched, finally feels seen. Still, the dreams do not stop. And finally, he breaks the code knot out of defiance, but desperation. He returns to Tatooine, to the planet that never let go. You walk with him across the same dust he once left behind, only now his feet drag heavier. He no longer marvels at the twin suns. He hides from them. He searches for his mother across deserts that have buried too many truths. And when he finds her, she is already dying, tortured, broken, held captive by those who see no humanity in slaves. She dies in his arms, whispering his name as if it were a lullaby, and something inside him shatters. Not just grief, but belief. In fairness, in mercy, in the Jedi way. The slaughter that follows is not war. It is not justice. It is a wound made flesh. The Tuscans fall beneath his blade. Men, women, children, none spared. The Force dims around him, not from absence, but from recoil. And when he returns to Padma, when he tells her what he's done, he expects her to run. But she doesn't. She weeps. And in that moment, something terrible and beautiful takes root. She loves him, not in spite of the darkness, but through it. And he clings to that love, like a man sinking beneath waves he cannot swim. You return with him to the Jedi. He says nothing. The Council does not know, but the Force knows, and it whispers now with a tone darker than before. He is still young, still unbroken, but the cracks are no longer hidden, and through them something ancient, patient, and watching begins to seep in. You drift once more over the dunes of Tatooine, the twin suns sinking low like fading memories, casting long shadows over a land that has never healed and never forgotten, the place where the Force first stirred, awake within him, where destiny began not as a triumph, but as a burden born into sand and silence. The desert remains unchanged, but he does not. Anakin walks now not as a boy, not even as a Jedi, but as a man fractured by too many titles and too little choice. He has seen war. He has saved lives. He has taken them. And yet the Council still doubts, still withholds, still fears the very strength it praises in whispers. The Clone Wars stretch on, grinding planets into rubble and blurring the line between savior and oppressor. Anakin, once a symbol of hope, becomes a sword used too often, too recklessly. The clones follow him without question. The people cheer him as a hero. But inside, the silence grows. He dreams not just of his mother now, but of Padma. He sees her die in visions. He cannot escape blood, screams, the cradle of death wrapped in childbirth. The Force sends no answers, only warnings. The Jedi tell him to let go. But how can he? He is not made of detachment. He is made of need, of ache, of fire, kept just beneath skin. And into that fire steps the one voice that does not ask him to feel less, but more. Palpatine, always present, always smiling. His words are never commands, only doors left ajar. He speaks of power, not as conquest, but as preservation, of abilities lost to the Jedi, of life beyond death, of Padme saved. Anakin listens, not because he believes, but because he must, because hope, even dark and twisted, is still hope when you are drowning. The bond between him and Obi-Wan thins to a thread. They speak, but no longer truly hear. They fight side by side, but their paths diverge with every battle. Anakin is elevated to the council, given a seat, but denied trust. He is asked to spy, to betray, to lie for those who claim to speak truth. And he breaks, quietly, slowly, inwardly, until one night, in the stillness of the temple, he kneels before darkness and calls it salvation. The desert is still inside him. The heat, the silence, the scream he never let out. It all returns in the moment the temple burns. Jedi fall beneath his blade. Younglings hide behind whispers. Anakin walks through it all like a storm wearing human skin. He is not blind. He is not possessed. He is convinced. He sees death not as evil, but as prevention, sacrifice, necessity. The prophecy, once a symbol of balance, has become a justification. He does not bring peace. He brings silence. And when Padme finds him, when she touches his face with the same hands that once held his trembling grief, he does not feel love. He feels fear of loss, of betrayal, and he chokes it, chokes her, chokes himself, until nothing remains but rage. On Mustafar, he falls not from a ledge, but from purpose, burned, crippled, caged, and as he is rebuilt in metal and pain, the desert vanishes inside him. Or so it seems. You follow Padme's body back to Naboo, but you follow Anakin's soul back to Tatooine, not in flesh, but in memory, in the shadow of Watto's shop, in the crash of Podresser engines, in the voice of a mother who whispered that he was meant for more. The prophecy lingers still, not fulfilled, not broken, but twisted. Luke is born. Leia is hidden. The future is split like sky across twin suns. And in the caves of Tatooine, old Ben Kenobi watches the horizon, knowing that one day the Force will ask again, not for balance, but for belief. You rest now beneath those same stars, the same dunes, the same silence. The boy is gone. The man is a myth. But somewhere deep beneath armor, beneath failure, beneath ash, something stirs. The prophecy is not finished. The desert is not done. You enter through a silence that echoes louder than war drums, into the vaulted dome of the Galactic Senate, where voices rise not to be heard, but to be tallied, weighed, and forgotten. Coruscant gleams beneath you, but the light is borrowed, reflecting. Off-mirrored towers built not on justice, but on erosion, dressed in elegance. The rot does not stink, it shimmers. The Republic speaks of peace, but every word is measured in credits and compromise. You drift above 1,000 floating platforms, where delegates wear smiles like armor and betrayal like perfume. They do not shout because they are calm. They shout because the volume distracts from their own insignificance. The Supreme Chancellor sits at the center of it all, cloaked not in deceit but in patience. Palpatine does not need to manipulate them. He simply offers what they already desire: order without effort, victory without consequence, power without sacrifice, and they applaud him for it. You drift through chambers where amendments are drafted by lobbyists and approved by exhaustion, where ethics are debated like trade routes, and where Naboo's Queen, now Senator Amidalaris, her voice not as a ruler, but as a witness, watching a system disintegrate from the inside. Pob does not scream, she pleads, and yet no one listens. Not because they disagree, but because to listen would mean to act. You watch her sit in her crimson gown, fingers curled into her lap, jaw set with quiet fury. As the others praise the Chancellor's expansion of emergency powers, she remembers when war was a last resort. Now it is the first solution offered to every problem. The Clone Wars rage beyond the stars, but here in the Senate, it is only ever about numbers. How many ships? How many troops? How much budget? How soon? The chamber applauds itself into ruin. Bail Organa stands beside her, his voice calm but tired. Mon Mothma watches with wary eyes, already calculating what rebellion might one day cost. Democracy grow brittle, like parchment touched by flame. You descend into the back rooms, where strategy is born behind closed doors, where senators drink and laugh while their votes starve planets. Who cheer the war because it profits their systems, who whisper of corruption but do nothing. The Jedi, once protectors of peace, are now pawns in politics. You see them speak at briefings, offer counsel, raise concerns, but they are no longer guardians, they are generals. You feel Yoda's sorrow like a storm hidden beneath still water. He senses what's coming, but his voice cannot reach past the walls of procedure. Mace Windu stiffens with each meeting, folding into rigidity, convinced control can replace clarity. Obi-Wan, always dutiful, begins to question silently, and Anakin Inoken grows more distant. He watches the Senate less with awe now, and more with calculation. He sees how power truly works here, and Palpatine sees him seeing it. Their conversations grow more private, their trust more dangerous. The Chancellor whispers, not lies, but truths twisted just enough to tilt perception. He speaks of weakness in the Jedi, of strength misused, of enemies hidden within. And Anakin listens because his doubts were never planted, they were watered. You follow the bills passed in haste, the planets annexed without defense, the rights stripped quietly while fireworks distract the public. You feel the moment the Senate no longer governs it, only reacts. The Republic begins to speak in binaries: security or chaos, loyalty or treason, unity or destruction. And in such a world, there is no room for nuance, only obedience. Pod sees it. She speaks of diplomacy, of reaching out, of slowing the descent, but each speech is met with more applause for war. Even those who once agreed with her begin to distance themselves. You feel her isolation. She smiles in public. She cries in silence. She carries life inside her and death around her. The irony is not lost on her. She once believed in this chamber, believed in dialogue, in law, in order. Now she believes in whispers, in shadows, in contingency. Because what once was a republic is now a shell. You rise above the chamber as another vote passes, unanimous, empowering the Chancellor to act without consultation. And he does, efficiently, ruthlessly, democratically. The Jedi speak out, but they are dismissed as fearful, overreaching. The galaxy believes it is safer now, more stable. And you feel the Force tighten, not as a scream, but as a breath held too long. Somewhere in the rafters of this golden cage, the final vote is prepared. The Empire is not born in fire. It is born in applause and liberty. Liberty does not die with violence. It dies with convenience. You move now through corridors, built not for justice, but for the illusion of it, where marble walls echo with footsteps that no longer seek truth, but as forgotten warnings carved into stone too smooth to feel. The Senate grows louder with each session, but it speaks less. Words are traded like currency votes, bartered in exchange for safety, and fear passed around like water in a drought. You float beside Palm as she walks those gilded halls, her hand resting occasionally on the curve of her belly, not yet revealed, but always known to her as both hope and weight. She smiles when required, but in her silence, her thoughts thunder. She watches senators, once bold, shrank into shadows, their courage bartered for committee assignments and campaign promises. In prayers whispered over meals, but nowhere is its ending discussed. It is not meant to end. It is meant to reshape. The Jedi are summoned more now, not as allies, but as tools. They sit in hearings where their morality is questioned by those who have none. They explain actions to politicians who profit from both sides of the war. They feel the Force dimming, the galaxy pulling away from balance like a planet sliding. From orbit, Mace Windu tightens his grip on order, believing that structure can withstand corruption. Yoda looks out across the skyline and feels his own teachings grow quiet. The Council grows cautious, reclusive, and the divide between Jedi and Senate widens until only silence remains between them. Anakin steps between these worlds, beloved by the public, trusted by the clones, watched by the Council and mentored, in shadows, by Palpatine. He is a paradox, a mirror reflecting whatever power looks into him, and the Chancellor uses that reflection masterfully. You feel Palpatine's words drift like fog into Anakin's ear, subtle, patient, poisoned not by lies, but by empathy. He tells the boy he is misunderstood, that the Council disrespects him, that the Jedi fear what they cannot control. And Anakin, already wounded by dreams of Padme's death, already fractured by past loss, listens, not because he is weak, but because he is human. Padme senses the shift in him, the stiffness in his voice, the distance behind his smile. They speak late at night in her apartment, curtains drawn, voices low, and still the air feels full of eyes. She asks what troubles him. He answers with fragments. She speaks of peace. He speaks of protection. She offers faith. He demands control. And somewhere between their breaths, a fracture forms that neither can name. Meanwhile, in secret alcoves and darkened halls, a small resistance begins to stir. Bail Organa convenes quietly with Mon Mothma and a handful of others, hearts still loyal to the Republic as it was, not as it pretends to be. They do not call themselves rebels, not yet, but they know what is coming. Padme joins them, not with weapons, but with her voice, her insight, her fear. They do not plan assassinations. They do not speak of coups. They speak of light, how to preserve it when the darkness becomes law. You drift through their meetings like a ghost of what might still be saved, and you feel their hope flicker, brave and small. They speak of reaching Anakin, of reminding him of who he was, but Padme hesitates. She has tried. She sees the shadows gathering in his eyes. The war intensifies, planets burn, worlds are lost, and through it all, the Senate votes more power into Palpatine's hands. Emergency authority, military command, judicial oversight, each vote cloaked in necessity, and the Republic fades like breath. On glass, the Jedi finally begin to move, slowly, carefully. Mace Windu speaks of treason, of surveillance, of intervention. Obi-Wan is sent away, and Yoda leaves to negotiate peace in a war that was never meant to end. Anakin is asked to spy on the Chancellor, and his heart splits. His loyalty pulls in two directions, one shaped by love, the other by gratitude. He sees the Jedi's distrust as betrayal. The moment arrives when Palpatine reveals himself, not just as Chancellor, but as Sithanoken, does not strike. He kneels, not out of weakness, out of desperation. Padme senses it the moment it happens, though she cannot name it. She touches the windowpane as if searching for him through distance and destiny. In anticipation, where the air smells of metal and thunder, the Senate has stopped debating. It only echoes now. Palpatine declares himself Emperor. He claims peace through strength. The galaxy does not resist. It cheers. Bail runs. Padme's heart breaks, not because she has lost power, but because she has lost belief. And in the quiet of her chambers, she whispers, "What if the democracy we thought we were serving no longer exists?" The Force trembles, not in outrage, but in mourning. The halls that once rang with law are now monuments to obedience. Statues remain, but they are hollow. Voices remain, but they are scripted. You move now through the final breaths of a dying order, through marble corridors once meant to hold truth and debate, now echoing only with the footsteps of officers and the rustle of red-cloaked guards who do not speak, who only watch, whose silence is more powerful than any command. And within the Senate chamber, that once golden arena of voices and ideals, you find only applause. The same sound that greeted the birth of emergency powers now heralds their permanence, and the chamber, once fractious and full of conviction, has folded into obedience as effortlessly as dry leaves underfoot. Palpatine stands at its heart, his voice deeper now, his posture more rigid, his eyes no longer hidden behind concern, but lit with the steady flame of conquest completed. He names the Jedi traitors. He names the war overview, names the Republic, transformed, and they cheer, not because they are deceived, but because the illusion of safety is more valuable to them than the truth of freedom. Outside starships fall into formation. Clone troopers salute without pause, and the Empire, without needing blood in the chamber, becomes law. You drift into Padme's apartment, where she sits in the window's low light, her hand again resting on her stomach, the growing lives inside her now the only truth she trusts. She does not speak of Anakin to the Senate anymore. She does not speak of him to herself, but you can feel his name on every breath she does not take, every thought she hides beneath long, tired blinks. She has seen too much to hope, and yet hopes, still, fragile and trembling like the flame of a candle in a hall about to collapse. The days pass, and her smile becomes a shield she cannot remove. Bail Organa visits in whispers. Mon Mothma leaves in silence. The resistance is no longer political, it is personal. It is survival. It is preparation. Anakin, now Darth Vader, moves through the temple not as a man, but as consequence. His steps echo across marble floors, stained in secrets. The archives are sealed, the lightsabers collected, the names erased. The younglings who once filled these halls are gone. The Force does not cry out. It breathes, shallow and slow. You feel the Jedi Temple watching itself vanish, knowing it will become museum and myth, not sanctuary. Pod boards her ship. She follows the pain. She lands on Mustafar, where lava splits the earth and the air tastes of ash. She finds him there, not in chains, but in glory, twisted. He speaks to her of power, of empire, of a world where he can keep her safe, raise their children in control, not chaos. She sees the fire in his eyes and knows it is not the planet, it is him. And when Obi-Wan steps from the shadows, when Anakin accuses, when his hand rises in rage, and she falls beneath the weight of betrayal, it is not death she feels, it is understanding. The boy she loved is gone. She is taken to Polis Massa. Body fading, voice dim, and still she gives them names. Luke, Leia, not as legacy, but as hope. Her heart breaks, but does not close. She speaks not of Anakin's fall, but of the good that must still remain, somewhere deep beneath the armor and ruin. And then she is gone. You return with her to Naboo, where a world once drenched in music now holds its breath. Her funeral winds through Theed, petals falling like tears, her hands wrapped around a symbol of the boy who once believed. The people mourn the Queen, not knowing they bury the last light of the Republic. The Senate moves on, the Empire expands, the Jedi are forgotten. You drift above it all, through systems renamed, laws rewritten, voices silenced, until the galaxy forgets it ever had a choice. But somewhere, on a desert world of twin suns, a child cries into the wind. Somewhere else, on a world of royalty and secrets, a girl is cradled by stars. And you, the witness, the dreamer, the listener, now understand that the halls of the Republic were never destroyed in one moment, but worn away in applause. And from that echo, the galaxy must one day remember how to speak again. You enter the Jedi Temple, not as a visitor, not as a student, but as something older than memory, an echo of the Force itself, drifting through columns carved in reverence, through silence sculpted to resemble peace. And you feel it immediately. The stillness is no longer sacred, it is stagnant. The marble beneath your feet remembers footsteps once light with wonder, now heavy with repetition. Statues of great masters line the inner sanctum, their eyes cast downward as though ashamed to meet yours. You move through the hall of knowledge, as if truth could be contained in phrases repeated but never questioned. You feel the council above, encircled in glass and distance. speaking of balance while misunderstanding its weight. Yoda's voice is slow, wise, but wrapped in weariness. Mace Windu sits straight-backed, eyes ever narrowed, protecting an order that is no longer listening. They speak of vision, of destiny, of prophecy, but they do not feel the currents shifting beneath them. They do not hear the Force anymore. They interpret it, file it, guard it behind pillars of protocol. You drift deeper, past meditation chambers, where breath is taught, but stillness. You touch the walls and feel stories erased in the name of clarity. Entire cultures misunderstood, entire truths ignored. The Jedi are not cruel, they are not corrupt, but they have forgotten how to listen. You find Obi-Wan walking the halls in quiet thought, reverent still, but already questioning. You see him pause by a window, gaze fixed on the skyline beyond the temple's spires. And you feel his doubt small, but persistent. He still believes, but belief has begun to require effort. You follow Anakin in his lessons, moving with precision, with power, with a curiosity that unsettles the masters. He asks questions they cannot answer without admitting the boundaries of their wisdom. He wonders about attachment, about emotion, about fear, not as weakness, but as something real, something living. And they tell him to release, to let go, to transcend. But the boy was born in slavery, raised in fear, shaped by loss. Letting go to him does not mean peace, it means abandonment. The council watches him with interest sharpened into suspicion. They sense the power, but not the pain beneath it. You feel how isolated he becomes, even surrounded by tradition. You, the young, learn the blade before they learn compassion. They speak of serenity while sparring. They quote calmness as if it were armor. You feel the contradictions. Sink deeper with each lesson. The Jedi preach harmony, yet train for war. They serve the Senate, yet claim no allegiance. They reject attachment. You see the threads of confusion wrapped beneath every robe, and the Force pulses faintly, not in rage, but in sorrow. It was never meant to be dogma. It was never meant to be possessed. It was breath, movement, instinct. It was life. And now it is filtered through council chambers, passed through hierarchies, and handed down like inheritance. You move into the temple's lower levels, into the room of 1,000 fountains, where the water still flows freely, where younglings once laughed without fear. But even here, silence has grown thick. The order is stretched thin by war. Jedi are called to serve as generals, not guardians. They speak less of the Force now, and more of tactics. The meditation halls are emptier. The archives are locked more often. You feel Ahsoka Tano walking these halls, a flame too bright for shadows, asking too many questions, moving with a heart not yet broken by betrayal. And when she is accused, when she is cast out, you feel the temple groan beneath the weight of its failure. She does not fall to the dark. She walks away, and in doing so, she becomes what the Jedi forgot they could be. The dark side rises not because they failed to stop it, but because they stopped listening, because they believed they were the only ones who could hear the truth. You float above them now, through vaulted ceilings that once reached toward understanding and now trap only echo. The temple still stands, the Jedi still speak, but the Force has begun to whisper elsewhere, in the quiet, in the forgotten, where maps of battles replace constellations in the minds of masters, and where the hum of lightsabers, training in graceful Arcs has been drowned beneath the grinding breath of war machinery. The Jedi have not fallen, they have shifted, quietly, subtly, and completely. You follow Master Ki-Adi-Mundi as he paces through the war room, his fingers tracing planetary routes like lines on a wound he cannot close. You listen as Mace Windu debates deployments, speaks of loyalty, betrayal, insurrection, all with a voice that once preached calm but now wears armor made of distrust. Yoda remains in meditation, but his stillness has become distance. The Force still touches him, but it speaks in riddles now, as though warning in poetry where truth once flowed in clarity. The younglings are quieter. Jedi are promoted faster now, sent into battle younger, trained not for peacekeeping, but for endurance. You feel it in the way they walk, their movements more like soldiers than sages. The temple smells of strategy, not serenity. War has made them efficient. War has made them blind. Obi-Wan Kenobi walks the halls between missions, robes stained with dust. From distant planets, saber never fully sheathed, voice softer but heavier. He teaches now more through presence than proclamation, the weight of loss pressing into each lesson. He still believes in the order, but belief costs more with every cycle. His faith is no longer his guide, is his shield. You watch as Anakin returns from battle after battle, shoulders broader, eyes darker, voice louder. He receives praise in the streets and suspicion in the chambers. The council asks more of him, gives less to him. He obeys, but not fully. He listens, but filters. He carries Padmé in his thoughts, like a secret flame, one the Jedi would command him to smother. And so he hides it deeper, trusting less. You feel the walls of the temple lean with unspoken pressure, as if the very foundation senses its purpose slipping. They speak still of balance, but they no longer practice it. They warn of fear, but use it in silence. And somewhere beneath all this, the Force begins to find new paths. It flows into the cracks, into the broken, into the unseen. You drift to the archives, where ancient texts remain untouched, gathering not dust, but dormancy. The Jedi no longer seek the past. In hidden corners of the galaxy, Force sensitives are born without guidance. Some feel it in music, others in dreams. None are found by the Jedi. They are too busy, too distant, too caught. The Jedi command them without cruelty, but without question, and in that gap, a quiet dread begins to stir. The clones do not complain, they do not doubt, but you feel how the Force recoils from such purity of programming. There is no growth here, only inevitability. And in that inevitability, the Jedi march further from the very mystery they once served. Ahsoka returns to the temple in chains, accused not by enemies, but by her own. You feel the coldness in the halls as she walks through them, not with fear, but with something sharper, clarity. She is exonerated, but it means nothing. The apology is formal, the wound is permanent. She leaves, and with her goes something the Jedi will never retrieve, a spark of the Force, still pure, still unburdened by protocol. You follow her into the city below, where she walks as a guardian without title, where the Force hums through her, not with rank, but with rhythm. She listens, she learns, she remembers, and far above her, the temple turns its gaze inward, still convinced it can survive by tightening. Palpatine moves now like shadow turned solid, shaping perception, offering comfort. while poisoning foundations. The Jedi suspect, they whisper, they debate, but they do not act. Not yet, not until it is too late. You feel Order 66 in the air before it is spoken, like thunder before the strike. The temple remains calm. The halls remain lit. That light is the hush of extinction. You drift through the council one last time, through seats soon to be empty, through robes soon to fall. They are not evil, but they have forgotten the difference between wisdom and rules. And when the temple finally burns, when sabers clash not against Sith, but against betrayal, the Force does not reject weeps, because it loved them, even as they stopped loving it. You return now to the Jedi Temple one final time, not as a witness to greatness, but as a mourner in a hall where silence has turned to ash, and the glow of the high spires no longer pierces the sky with hope, but smolders like the last breath of a candle before it vanishes. The sun sets over Coruscant, but no one watches. The streets are patrolled now by soldiers with blank eyes and familiar armor. You float through its shattered corridors, past statues toppled by blaster bolts, past holocrons cracked and dimmed forever, their lessons lost before they were ever fully understood. The echoes of laughter are gone. The voices of masters have faded. Even the fountains, once sacred, now spill dark and aimless across stone. You pass through the council chamber, the great circle of wisdom now broken in half, chairs empty, window cracked, the floor still warm from the weight of boots that should never have walked here. You see Anakin Darth Vader now not in armor, not in myth, but as he was in that moment, breathing heavily, robes singed, saber glowing with betrayal, eyes hollowed by what he told himself he had to do. He does not rage. He moves with the silence of someone who no longer questions. He told himself it was to protect Padma, to prevent another loss, to finally control the tide that had always swept through his life unchecked. But the Force around him mourns, soft and slow, like a river drying into dust, and you, drifting, unseen, feel the sorrow of 1,000 ancestors pressing into your chest, not with judgment, but with grief too deep for language. The Jedi Order does not fall because of one man. It falls because it forgot how to bend. It falls because it mistook rigidity for wisdom, tradition for truth. It forgot the child within each initiate, the pain behind each choice, the silence between each line of code. It forgot the Force was not a ladder to climb, but a breath to follow. And in forgetting, it became blind. You drift past young, who never had time to become, masters who died defending a legacy already gone, knights who never questioned why the council had grown quiet when the galaxy screamed. The temple dies not in rage, but in the culmination of every small compromise. And still, far below, in the depths where the temple meets the soil of Coruscant's forgotten layers, something flickers, a memory, a pulse. The Force still breathes. It flows not through walls or words, but through those who feel it without needing to claim it. Ahsoka, walking through the outer rim with no title but truth. Obi-Wan, hidden in the desert, not as a master, but as a protector. Yoda, in exile, meditating not to control, but to remember. And others children born in silence, dreamers who hear echoes in the stars, wanderers who feel the pull without knowing its name. The Jedi Order is gone, But the Force is not. It does not belong to temples or titles. It belongs to all things. It sings in the sand. It whispers in the dark. It hums in places no blade can reach. And as you rise above the crumbled halls, above the wreckage of what once guided the galaxy, you do not carry despair. You carry remembrance of what was, of what failed, of what might still return, not as an institution, but as a feeling encloaked, unchained, and unafraid to listen. As listeners, as those who remember that the Force is not something to command, it is something to become. You arrive where the stars do not blink but burn, where the air is thick with heat and the land breathes like a furnace, and you do not walk on Mustafar, you survive it, each step drawn through ash and ember, each breath a trial of will. The planet groans beneath your feet, rivers of lava carving their own language through blackened rock, and in the distance, metal towers rise like fractured spears, piercing the sky with smoke and silence. This is not a world for life. This is a world for endings. You feel it in the way the Force coils around every scream swallowed by the flame, in the way history holds its breath not for battle, but for betrayal. Inside a structure meant for control, not comfort, Anakin Skywalker waits, though that name no longer fits him, hangs loose and haunted against the shape he has become. He walks alone now, among corridors that hum with separatist machinery, and as you drift beside him, you feel the tremor in his silence. The war has ended, but the peace is dead. He has brought justice, but only by burning the foundation beneath it. The separatist leaders fall by his hand, not as foes, but as ends to a task. His blade ignites, not with fury, but with finality. They plead, they reason. He does not hear them. He only sees the goal beyond them. A galaxy secured, a wife saved, a future he has convinced himself can still be built on ruin. And outside, Palm's ship descends. You feel her fear before you see her face. She steps onto the blackened soil, with eyes wide, not in awe, but in ache. And when he turns, when their eyes meet across that molten horizon, something in you breaks. Because for a breath just, one he is Anakin again. His voice softens, his hands tremble. He speaks of the Republic as if it was a lie, of the Jedi, as if they were traitors, of the Empire, as if it were salvation. He tells her they can rule together, that nothing else matters, that he has done it all for her. And she steps back. Her voice trembles, not from fear, but from sorrow. She tells him he's changed, that this isn't love, that power built on fear cannot protect what it claims to love. And his face shifts, the softness drains, the shadow returns. She is no longer comfort, she is a threat to the illusion he clings to. And when she falls to the ground, gasping, clutching her stomach, it is not the Force that pushes her, it is him. And in that moment, Anakin Skywalker dies. Obi-Wan appears as if summoned by fate, his face carved from disbelief and mourning. And you feel the current change, not in swells, but in cracks. They circle each other, not as master and student, not as general and traitor, but as brothers, cleaved by belief. Words pass like blades. Accusations land deeper than strikes. And when sabers ignite, they do not hum, they scream. You follow them through catwalks and crumbling towers, over rivers that boil and cliffs that bleed heat. Their fight is not choreography, is memory unleashed. Every clash is a wound revisited. Every leap, a plea, unspoken. Obi-Wan does not want to kill him. Anakin no longer believes he can die, and the planet beneath them weeps in flame. The battle rages until the end finds them on a slope above fire, both battered, both burned, both beyond repair. And Obi-Wan, with his blade held firm and his voice breaking, shouts not in hatred but in agony, "You were my brother, Anakin. I loved you." And Anakin, now crawling, now engulfed in flame, screams with a voice no longer human, consumed by fire, swallowed by fate. Obi-Wan turns away, robes fluttering in the heat, eyes closed not to block out the sight but to survive. You drift above Anakin's burning body, the Force trembling, not from darkness but from pity. Mustafar does not celebrate. It mourns. It marks the moment the Chosen One ceased to choose. And in that scorched silence, the galaxy begins, again not in light, not in balance, but in shadow that whispers of what was lost. You drift now through the smoke of aftermath, where fire no longer rages but simmers, and the ash that falls from Mustafar's broken sky lands not on Earth, but on legacy what was, what should have been, what has now twisted into something unrecognizable. The duel is over. Obi-Wan is gone. Padme lies unconscious in a ship already pulling away from the edge of devastation, and Anakin, what is left of him, remains on the slope, burning, breathing, breaking. You feel it all at once, the agony that no longer screams, the silence that no longer soothes, the Force recoiling like a wound reopening. Palpatine arrives not in haste, but in certainty. His boots do not rush, his hands do not tremble. He kneels beside the ruin of his apprentice, and sees not the cost, but the prize, the raw, melted shape of a man now so hollow he can be filled with anything. He commands the medics. He speaks no words of comfort. He watches the broken body be lifted into steel chambers, where the fire does not stop, changes form. You follow them into the darkness of the operating theater, where machines hiss and drill and stitch without mercy. The screams that come do not belong to a man, they belong to something shedding its final pieces of humanity. Limbs replaced, lungs encased, skin hidden, soul severed. The mask is the final touch, not of concealment, but of transformation. And when it seals, when the breath rattles out like thunder, forced through a blade of glass, you feel the moment when Anakin Skywalker dies, not in flame, but in silence. Darth Vader rises, not from pride, but from the absence of anything else. And yet, in the depths of the Force, you feel something still pulsing, faint, small, hidden, but not gone. Padme awakens, far from fire, in a sterile room where the air smells of endings. Obi-Wan sits beside her, face carved in quiet failure. She asks for Anakin, not with hope, but with knowing. She speaks his name as though it already belongs to history. And when she learns the truth, she does not rage. She weeps, not with volume, but with stillness. Her body fails as her heart lets go. The droids find no reason for her death. They speak of grief as if emotion were a malfunction. But you know, the Force knows. She speaks names, Luke, Leia, and gives them not as burdens, but as seeds, as promise. And then she is gone, leaving behind not sorrow, but a silence too sacred to shatter. You follow the children as they are carried into obscurity. Leia, held in arms, surrounded by velvet and politics, her life already shaped by titles she does not yet understand. Luke, swaddled beneath a binary sunset, placed in the care of moisture farmers who do not see prophecy, only responsibility. And above them all, the empire rises not in eruption, but in steady silence. Clones trade names for numbers. Senators trade votes for fear. The Jedi become myth in real time, and the galaxy forgets how to dream without permission. Vader moves through starships now, his breath the music of dominance, his steps a warning, his presence a wound. No one questions, few remember, even fewer resist. But the Force remembers. It weeps in the wind over Alderaan. It hides in the roots of Dagobah. It flickers in the smile of a child too young to know they are destined. And it lingers on Mustafar, in the black stone, in the embered soil, in the echoes of a brotherhood undone. You walk one last time along the edge of that river of fire where hope once stood and tried to reason with fury. You listen to the silence, and within it you hear what the galaxy forgot to say, that monsters are not born in shadow, they are forged in light denied. And though Anakin is gone, and the temple is dust, and liberty is cloaked in iron, the Force does not end. It waits, quietly, patiently, for the moment it will be heard again, not by warriors, not by empires, but by those willing to feel beyond fear. The fire has not consumed everything. Something still breathes beneath the mask, something that one day, far beyond this flame, may rise again. You drift now through the first days of darkness, where order has been replaced with silence, and the galaxy once filled with voices now speaks in whispers and fear, as though the stars themselves have been instructed to dim. Vader moves through these shadows, not as a man, but as a symbol, his breath a thunderclap in corridors lined with polished steel, his cloak dragging the weight of an empire still solidifying its grip. He walks with purpose that feels more like punishment, each step a memory he will not allow himself to revisit, each command issued with a voice that once spoke of freedom, now buried beneath filtered growls and calculated rage. You follow him across bridge decks and scorched landing zones, where the faces before him bow without understanding that the figure they kneel to once dreamed of saving them. He says nothing of what he has lost, not to the Emperor, not to the stars, not even to himself, but the Force, ever present, feels it the tight coil of pain, the void where love once lived, the name he never speaks. Far from the reach of his shadow, Obi-Wan Kenobi walks the edges of another world, his robe tattered by wind, his eyes cast low, not in shame but in mourning, too vast to share. Tatooine offers no refuge, only purpose. He watches from a distance. As a boy grows beneath twin suns, the child of hope wrapped in dust and kindness, unaware of the weight his name carries. Obi-Wan does not interfere. He listens. He waits. He tries to forget the sound of Mustafar's screams. But at night, when the winds die down and the stars return in silence, he remembers. He remembers the laughter of a boy who rebuilt droids for fun, the look in Padme's eyes when she spoke of peace, the final words spoken through fire. You were my brother. And he asks the Force, not for clarity, but for forgiveness. In the shadows of the galaxy, others begin to stir, survivors, wanderers, those who escaped Order 66, not with strength, but with silence. Some hide, some fight, some simply endure. The Force finds them, faintly, like a breeze in a sealed room, and where it touches, it plants memory, not of the Jedi as they were, but of the truth they forgot. Ahsoka walks a path with no banner, her blades no longer blue, her name spoken only in stories. She saves where she can, disappears where she must, and through her, the Force remembers how to move without control. Yoda, in exile, speaks to no one and hears everything. His hut on Dagobah is small, but his vision expands. He listens to the swamp. He breathes with the vines, and slowly the noise of the galaxy fades until the Force begins to speak again, not in instruction, but in rhythm. Meanwhile, in the core of power, Palpatine rules not with fire, but with patience. His face, scarred by deception, smiles through politics and policy, while his true empire is built beneath, in secret laboratories, in forbidden archives, in temples lost and unearthed. He watches Vader with satisfaction, not because he trusts him, but because he no longer needs to. Vader obeys, he hunts. He slaughters the remnants of the Jedi Order, not because he hates them, but because he must. Each mission is a mask, each target a mirror. He returns to Mustafar and builds his fortress on the very slope where he burned, not as a grave, as a monument, a prison. The Force coils around it, unsettled. The planet remembers him too well. The lava flows the same. The sky flickers with the same bruised orange. But he does not look out the window. But when he does, they are not of battlefields. They are of hands reaching, of names whispered, of a voice that says his name the way no one else ever has. The Emperor senses it, but allows it. He knows that what remains of Anakin is small, contained, manageable, but the Force does not agree. The Force listens, the Force waits, because the Chosen One's story does not end in fire or armor. It lingers. It curls beneath the surface, like smoke, refusing to fade. It follows Luke as he learns to walk. It hides behind Leia's courage. It pulses in the moments between stars. And you, drifting between what was and what might be, begin to understand. Redemption is not a moment. It is a question asked over time, again and again, until it is finally heard. And beneath the armor, behind the mask, inside the silent Anakin Skywalker, has not answered, not yet. But one day, the Force will ask again. You move now through a galaxy that no longer dreams, only remembers, where stars are mapped by patrol routes, and freedom has been redrawn into silence. Neat and cold beneath banners of black and crimson. And in this quiet, enforced not by peace but by fear, the last hope is not shouted from rooftops, it is whispered from arm to arm, swaddled, hidden, unnamed to those who would twist it. The Jedi are gone. The Senate remains, but only as theater. The Emperor's voice carries farther than law. You drift across the stars to Alderaan, where a child's cry echoes against marbled halls and royal pillars, where Bail Organa holds the infant Leia like a secret too bright for war. Her eyes are wide, ancient, fearless. She simply wraps the girl in silk and responsibility, and Leia grows fast, sharp, stubborn. She asks questions no one else dares to voice. She listens at doors not meant to be opened. And though she does not know her bloodline, the Force hums at the edge of her perception, like music just beyond hearing. On the other side of the galaxy, far from palaces and polished stone, twin suns rise over sand, and the wind carries nothing but dust and the weight of memory. Luke Skywalker plays in shadows cast by vaporators, unaware of the myth stitched into his name. He chases mechanical scraps like they matter, dreams of starships, draws battles in the sand with sticks, and looks to the horizon as if the answer to who he is might one day ride in with the sunset. Owen Lars watches him with guarded silence, Beru with aching warmth. They do not speak of his father. They do not speak of Obi-Wan, who lingers on the edge of their world like a ghost too noble to rest. And you follow Obi-Wan now, his robe faded, his saber buried, his voice seldom used. He no longer calls himself master. He no longer calls upon the Force, but it still breathes through him like a tide just beneath the sand, waiting to return. At night, he dreams of Mustafar, of Anakin's scream, of Padme's final gasp. He walks through markets unnoticed, rides Dubox alone, watches Luke from afar. He is not a guardian, he is a shadow of one, and yet the Force stays near him, not out of obedience, but out of love. Across the stars, Vader rises through the ranks of darkness, his armor an echo chamber for regret he cannot name. He hunts remnants of the Jedi, not to avenge, but to erase. And still, in the deepest corners of his chamber, when the lights fade and the galaxy retreats into silence, he sees two children, one he does not know, the other he believes, lost in. Something flickers behind his breath. The Force is everywhere, now more than ever, but it moves like a whisper passed between rebels and refugees, among smugglers who carry more than cargo, and in the hearts of those who cannot explain why they still believe in something they've never seen. It touches a woman on Lothal, a child in the ruins of Coruscant, a pilot who doesn't understand why she senses danger just before it strikes. It moves in pieces, scattered like embers, and though the galaxy cannot see it, it is reforming not as an order, but as a pulse. You hear names spoken softly: Saw, Mon Mothma, Fulcrum. You see symbols scratched into durasteel and erased before sunrise. These are not warriors, they are keepers. They hold the line between what was and what could be. They speak not of victory. They speak of survival, of stories, of passing the fire forward, one hand at a time. The Force does not shine in them. You float now above Dagobah, where a creature older than empires breathes beside a swamp, eyes closed, lips moving in rhythms only the Force can understand. Yoda has not fallen, he has simply returned to stillness. He watches, not with sadness, but with patience. It will find new paths, new names, new ways to be heard. And far above all this, somewhere deep in the quiet between stars, a ship glides with no destination, only purpose. A child sleeps aboard it. Their future is unknown, their power untested, but their presence in the Force is unmistakable, and you feel it. The same feeling you had when Shmi let go of her son, when Padme whispered names in the dark, when Leia opened her eyes, when Luke first looked to the stars. It is not destiny, it is not prophecy. It is the return of something too long silenced: belief, not in institutions, not in rules, but in each other. The Force is not loud, it is not cruel. It is the quiet held in hidden arms, waiting for the moment the galaxy remembers how to feel again. You move now through the fragile threads of a galaxy pretending to be whole, where silence has become law and memory is a crime, and yet beneath the weight of empire and the weight of forgetting, Something begins to stir, not as a rebellion, not yet, but as a breath held long and finally released. On Alderaan, Leia Organa grows beneath chandeliers and council chambers, raised by nobility, but shaped by questions no etiquette lesson can contain. Her eyes see further than her titles allow, and her voice, even in childhood, carries the sharpness of someone born not only to speak, but to challenge. Bail and Breha watch her with love laced in caution, telling her only fragments of truth, shielding her from what she already senses deep in her bones, that she is more than a senator's daughter, more than a symbol. She feels the Force, not in visions or lightning, but in instinct. On Tatooine, Luke climbs dune ridges with goggles askew, dreams painted across the sky in the shape of starfighters and freedom. His life is smaller, quieter, and yet the Force coils tightly around him, like thread waiting for a hand to pull. He races with Biggs, repairs droids with hands too precise for coincidence. And when he stares out at the sunset, it is not longing. You feel it is recognition. He knows something is missing. He just doesn't know what. Owen tightens the fences. Beru keeps the warmth alive. And Obi-Wan watches from a hill beyond the edge of comfort, his figure wrapped in regret, his purpose hidden behind weathered silence. He knows the boy is growing too fast. He knows the truth cannot stay buried forever. You drift into the deeper places, now into forests thick with resistance, into sewers lined with messages, passed in code, into the breath of rebels who are not yet warriors, but seeds waiting for flame. Mon Mothma begins to gather quietly, her speeches laced with subtext, her eyes sharper than the Senate believes. Bail moves funds in shadows, arms refugees with information, not weapons. Fulcrum whispers through secure channels, recruiting, listening, stitching the broken voices of the galaxy back into a chorus of defiance. You feel the Force move among them not as power, but as guidance. A subtle nudge, a moment of clarity, a hesitation that saves a life. The Jedi are gone, but the Force has not lost its way. It simply found new messengers. You float through slums and ruins, past children who lift objects without touching them, past elders who dream of places they've never seen, past smugglers who hesitate before they fire. Something ancient is awakening, not in cathedrals, but in ruins. The Empire grows louder. The Inquisitors hunt. They sense flickers in the dark. They kill without hesitation. But the flickers return again and again, because the Force cannot be extinguished. It can only be ignored. And now it is done being ignored. Vader moves across systems with fury disguised as discipline, hunting Jedi survivors, extinguishing ancient temples. Yet even he feels the presence of something he cannot understand. He tells himself the Jedi are gone, that the prophecy was false, that his dreams died with Padme. But when he meditates, when he lowers his guard, when the machines cease their hum, he feels a tremor, name not spoken, a birth never known. He tells himself it is nothing, and the Emperor watches. Palpatine feels the same tremor. He does not show concern. He doubles his grip. He strengthens the Death Star. He tightens the leash. But you feel his fear buried deep, because he knows what the dark side cannot conquer. Love remembered. Far away, Leia gives a speech before she is allowed to vote. Luke watches twin moons and hears a name in the wind. he's never learned. The Force grows bolder. On Lothal, a boy draws creatures with eyes that shimmer in ways no one can explain. On Jedha, pilgrims still gather to pray to the Kyber, even as stormtroopers tear down their banners. In the trash heaps of Corellia, a girl hides a glowing crystal she found buried in an old flight suit. The Force touches all of them, waiting, calling, asking not for devotion, but for listening. Obi-Wan senses it. Yoda senses it. Ahsoka, in the distant reaches of the unknown, senses it too, and she does not speak of Jedi. She speaks of truth. You return now to the hidden corners of the galaxy, and you see it clearly. The last hope is not in the hands of generals or armies or even legends. It is in the moments, the decisions, the ones who choose to act quietly, kindly, bravely, when no one is watching. The Force flows through them, not with thunder, but with trust, and soon those small choices will become louder. Soon, someone will answer the call they do not yet know they've heard. Soon, the children who were hidden in silence will walk into the light. And when they do, the galaxy will remember not what it lost, but what it still has. You return now to a galaxy on the edge of remembering, where the silence that once cloaked the stars begins to crack, not with shouts or armies, but with footsteps taken toward purpose, with names whispered again after years of exile, with children no longer hidden, but walking unknowingly toward the shape of their own myth. Luke stands on the edge of a dune, staring into the sunset, the color of it etched so deeply into his eyes that it will follow him into every shadow he ever walks through. He does not know what waits for him. He does not know the world is about to change, but something inside him tightens, a thread pulled by a force older than words. He has asked all his life for something more, and now, without knowing it, he is stepping into the answer. Leia sits in a Senate chamber filled with men, twice her age and half her courage, her hands folded, her voice steady, her gaze unflinching. She speaks of justice, of the forgotten, of the lie woven into every imperial speech. And though they dismiss her with smiles, they fear her because she is truth wrapped in fire. She receives a message. She accepts a mission. She boards a ship. You drift above her and feel the Force swell not in prophecy, but in recognition. Obi-Wan moves across Tatooine for the last time, his presence no longer cloaked in waiting, but sharpened into action. The moment has come. He ignites his saber, not in rage, not even in defense, but in remembrance. The time for stillness is over. Vader feels it too. In the dark chamber, where light dares not linger, where machines hum and officers bow, something moves behind the mask. Not regret, not love, but a pull. Something unspoken, something unfinished. The Force tugs on what is left of him, and for a moment he stands very still. The Death Star casts its shadow. The rebellion takes form not in one room, but in many, threaded together by those who have had enough of forgetting. They speak of hope, they speak of Skywalker, not knowing there are two. You feel Bail Organa place a message in the hands of a droid, trusting that something small can carry something vast. You follow R2 as he departs with it, and though he is made of metal and sparks, the Force does not ignore him. It travels with him. Beside him, C-3PO mutters and doubts, but walks anyway, because even those who do not believe can carry the story forward. The journey begins, not with thunder, but with sand. With a farm boy meeting a girl in a hologram. With a forgotten knight raising his blade one final time. With a smuggler choosing not to run. With friends found, lost, and found again. The Force weaves through all of it, not to control, but to connect. Not to rule, but to remind. Because it was never just about the Jedi or the Sith or the war. It was about those who chose to believe, even when belief was buried. You move now between Luke and Leia as they stand on opposite ends of their story, each unaware of the other, each carrying half a light destined to meet. They were never meant to win alone. They were always meant to awaken the galaxy together. In time, they will find each other. In time, they will feel the truth. In time, the children of silence will raise their voices and show the galaxy what it had forgotten, that the Force is not a weapon. It is a whisper, a promise, a choice. And you, the listener, the dreamer, the breath between stories, now understand. The fire has not died. It has only changed shape. And in the quiet after the Empire's rise, you held the last hope in hidden arms and never let go.